Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Side Projects. This one is all about the biggest flops in automotive history. I know on these lists, I don't know if we've got it on the list today. Obviously I don't write these, I haven't even read this yet. The DMC DeLorean or GMC? DMC DeLorean, right? That thing is always described as a flop, but it is the coolest car ever and I desperately want one. I'm probably gonna buy one someday. They're not actually that expensive.
3 words for you: treat yourself.
In late January of 1886, German engineer Carl Benz submitted a patent application for a revolutionary new machine, the world's first gasoline-powered vehicle, aka a car. Though his groundbreaking automobile wouldn't pass muster by today's standards, that would be extraordinarily unfair to hold it up to today's standards, it spawned a multi-billion-dollar global industry that over the years has churned out everything from iconic Ferraris and timeless Porsches to urine yellow AMC Pacers, 40 horsepower Yugo GV hatchbacks, and everything in between. They make cars with 40 horsepower. Does it even go? Though even the two latter examples met with some success, other vehicles are persistently labeled as classic flops. Some don't necessarily deserve the derogative moniker, like the DeLorean, but others, like the ones in this video, do, and for a variety of reasons, including laughable design, marketing missteps, shoddy craftsmanship, unforeseeable economic slumps, and exorbitant production costs. In short, sometimes everything that can go wrong actually does. But enough said, that was a long intro. Let's get into some of the biggest flops in automotive history. Between 1996 and 1999, GM built more than 1,100 EV1 electric cars at the company's Lansing Craft Center in Michigan. The two-door, two-seat coupe featured appealing lights. Every American in the car is going to be, Simon, what is a coupe? It's a coupe. And I'm like, no, a coupe is a place you keep chickens. A coupe is a type of car. Slippery aerodynamics and a 3-phase alternating current induction motor and battery combo that together cranked out nearly 140 horsepower and 110 pound-feet of torque at 7,000 RPMs. Though the EV1's batteries were continually upgraded, early editions had a range of just over 50 miles, that's 89 kilometers, which made them suitable for commuting and little else. A distinction lost on some owners who insisted on taking their new rides on cross-country road trips with, well, less than satisfying results. You're going to be charging it up all the time. Later models could travel nearly 140 miles on a single charge despite a hefty 3,000-pound curb weight. But the car's cramped, family-unfriendly sports car-like interior eliminated huge swaths of environmentally conscious urban professionals who may have bought them otherwise. Even today, EV1s are considered one of the 20th century's most innovative, efficient, and effective designs, but the program was a classic dud thanks in large parts to faulty marketing and huge research and development costs, which GM never recouped. But economics aside, from technological and style perspectives, many previous owners, engineers, and all-round auto enthusiasts look back on the EV1 fondly, and some consider it superior to today's most popular electric cars like the Toyota Prius, Nissan Leaf, and Chevy Bolt. No Tesla in there? Aren't they the big guys? However, notwithstanding this crowning achievement, from the 70s through to the 90s, American automakers like GM were relentlessly criticized for their top-heavy management structures and listless design departments, which together had an uncanny knack for producing hordes of low-quality, gas-guzzling machines that were notoriously lacking in ergonomics, efficiency, and innovation. To set themselves apart from the pack and spurred on by a California Air Resources Board CARB initiative mandating that by 1998 2% of U.S. auto manufacturers' vehicles would need to be emission-free, GM set out to develop and produce a true game-changer. And its starting point was the revolutionary electric car concept that had debuted at the LA Auto Show nearly a decade earlier. By 1996, the original design had evolved into the EV1, the first car ever to wear the General Motors nameplate instead of one of its brands like Chevrolet or Buick. Nearly 700 first-generation EVs were produced, most of which were made available to residents of Arizona and California through a leasing program with monthly payments ranging from $399 to $549 a month, which is about $668 to $920 when adjusted for inflation. Analysts surmised that demand would be between 5,000 and 20,000 units per year, and to that end, the multi-million-dollar product launch featured web, television, and roadside billboard advertisements, as well as opulent leasing extravaganzas attended by sports stars, politicians, and A-list celebrities like Sylvester Stallone. What are you up to, Sly? Deliveries began in December of '96, but the stylish battery-powered EV1 EV1's future was anything but bright. People who leased the car liked the car's design, acceleration, and the status that went along with driving it, but its limited range, tedious recharging that often took up to 8 hours, and odd handling were among its most noteworthy drawbacks. Yeah, I remember when things used to take ages. I had a laptop when I was a kid. I don't know, like 17, 18. And that thing, the battery would last for 45 minutes, but you'd have to charge it up overnight. It was insane. Sadly, just a few years after bursting onto the scene with demands lagging far behind expectations, GM announced that it would discontinue production. Reading between the lines, many noted that demand was actually robust, just not at GM's prices, and even worse, the company was leasing the vehicles at a loss. In other words, the ahead of its time EV1 just wasn't economically feasible. According to GM, development costs were approximately $500 million excluding marketing, although it was partly offset by the Clinton administration's New Generation of Vehicles program. Though a few examples were whisked off to museums and GM facilities to be used as test and research platforms, most off-lease EV1s were sent to crushers where they met unceremonious ends before being hauled off to scrap and recycling yards. Outraged at losing his beloved electric ride, one owner reportedly wrote an open letter to then GM CEO Rick Wagoner stating that the EV1 was more than a car, it's a path to national salvation. Score 1 for melodrama. Although, I mean, is it melodramatic to say he's kind of right? Burning a lot of petrol, guys. Electric is the future. From 1982 to 1988, and mercifully no longer, iconic American automobile manufacturer Cadillac produced one of the worst cars in recent memory, the Cimarron. Still the punchline of tasteless cocktail party jokes more than 3 decades later. I don't go to any cocktail parties and I've never heard this joke. Each shiny base model Cimarron came with vinyl and cloth-clad bucket seats, cheesy 13-inch wheels, even cheesier hubcaps, and hopelessly anemic 4-cylinder power plants that, at full throttle, produced just 88 horsepower, enough to rocket the 2,700-pound 4-door sedan from a dead stop to 60 miles an hour in about 13 seconds. Roughly 2 seconds slower than it took a Chevy Citation to get there. That is slow. Thankfully for those hell-bent on owning a Caddy, for whom 88 horsepower just wouldn't do, the company offered a fire-breathing 2.8-liter V6 upgrade that thumped out a stomping 125 horsepower. 2.8 liters, 125 horsepower. What are you up to? Which, under optimal, probably downhill conditions, would propel the Cimarron to a top speed of 89 miles an hour. 2.8 liters and you're getting to 89 miles an hour. What is going on? Transmission options included a meager 3-speed auto for the V6 model and 4 or 5-speed manuals for the 4-cylinder versions. Apparently, for proud owners of the latter, nothing quite spelled class and luxury like getting a Charlie horse from riding the clutch and stop-and-go rush hour traffic. The dashboard consisted of multiple hunks of unevenly jointed plastic that looked like they'd been designed and manufactured by Fisher-Price. And even the usually obligatory cup holders were missing, though die-hard Cadillac enthusiasts claimed these shortcomings complemented the car's sloppy brakes, soft suspension, and imprecise gear shifter nicely. It's a wonderful combination. But surprisingly, as utterly misguided as the Cimarron was, it wasn't so much the car itself that cemented its place on flop lists like this one, but rather what it represented. Let's rewind to the 1980s. Beleaguered by domestic competitors like Lincoln and sportier, more fuel-efficient imports from BMW, Audi, Volvo, and Saab, Cadillac bigwigs made the colossal blunder of thinking they could compete by resorting to transparent, or at least translucent, gimmicks. Hence the repackaging of the humble Chevy Cavalier, already the platform on which other, less appealing cars like the Oldsmobile Forenza, Pontiac Sunbird, and Buick Skyhawk were based. Good start. But adding a few meager upgrades and sticking a Cadillac emblem on the hood of what were essentially baseline 4-door Chevy sedans wasn't what cost-conscious luxury buyers had in mind, especially since the Cimarron cost about twice what a Cavalier did. At about $12,000, that's $31,000 today, it wasn't expensive by premium brand standards, but from performance and prestige standpoints, it ended up being the proverbial turd in the punch bowl, despite its catchy new marketing slogan of a new kind of Cadillac for a new kind of Cadillac owner, a cheaper kind of Cadillac owner, a worse kind. That last bit I made up. That wasn't in their marketing slogan. That would be bad.
It's actually quite nice.
What the marketing department at Cadillac either failed to realize or outright ignored was that going down market to attract people who'd even remotely consider purchasing a lowly Cavalier or Sunfire would irrevocably tarnish the image on which the brand had been built, which is exactly what happens. Cadillac did manage to recover, and chances are they won't make the same mistake again anytime soon, as evidenced by the fact that since the production lines ground to a halt in 1988, there's never been a successor to the venerable Cimarron. All told, nearly 132,000 examples were produced, which isn't bad for a car that made a Chevy Citation look like a Lotus Esprit Turbo. In 1957, in an attempt to gain market share from Chrysler and General Motors, Ford launched a new car brand that tanked so completely that almost overnight it became a case study in how to not introduce a product. Billed as a car for average working-class Americans, Ford's misplaced confidence ran so high that it purportedly sunk nearly $250,000, which is about $2 billion today, into the Edsel. But in the end, it lost not only its initial investment, but also another $100 million to boot. Design and marketing teams at Ford began working on the car all the way back in 1955. But though the Edsel was often described as an unaesthetic gas guzzler, thanks largely to its odd grille and the massive V8 available in top-of-the-line models that produce nearly 350 horsepower and 475 pound-feet of torque, it wasn't just its design and mechanical flaws that led to its downfall. Instead, the arrogance and ineptitude of those tasked with finding out just what the public wanted during the project's research and development phase were more worthy of blame here. Indeed, numerous polls were conducted, all of which garnered helpful data that might have helped the Edsel succeed. In the early going, public input was sought to nail down everything from price, size, features, and colors, as well as the new line's name. But much of it was then just cast aside, and that led to disastrous results. Though Edsel was among the brand's proposed names, most thought it was bland and it didn't jive with the image that they were after. However, in what may have been a blatant case of sucking up to the Ford family, at the 9th hour, the Edsel name was selected by a powerful board member because, well, Edsel was the name of the founder, Henry Ford's son. Of course, delivering spanking new cars with fluid leaks, faulty hoods and trunks, and buttons that wouldn't depress soured many new owners to their purchases from the get-go, but they were the least of the Edsel's problems. Compared to now, automobile choices for American consumers in the 50s were limited, and the differences between design and performance from one manufacturer to the next were minimal. Ford's Edsel designers should have focused on making their new car stand out, but instead of honing their vision, they made the classic mistake of trying to make the car everything to everyone. In fact, at the launch in 1958, there were nearly 18 different models available, including two-door coupes, four-door sedans, ragtops, and even a station wagon. What is a ragtop? Is that like a convertible? Ragtop. The Edsel was also a victim of bad timing, because in mid-1957 the stock market took a swift downturn and sales of mid-priced automobiles plummeted. Even before the first Edsel had rolled off the assembly line, hard-nosed corporate sales reps had hit the streets to persuade dealerships to order more cars than they could possibly sell, and during the economy malaise, they were left with lots of unsold units. And when they did begin arriving at dealerships and auto shows, the reception wasn't exactly warm. After inspecting it for the first time, one automotive journalist dubbed the car Edsel's hermaphrodite because it was a strange amalgamation of masculine and feminine traits. This androgynous hodgepodge resulted from Ford's insistence that the car be universally appealing. They'd even produced two distinct media events prior to the big reveal. One for men featured an Edsel ripping around a closed course piloted by a stunt driver, while the other for women was hosted by a female impersonator, or what we'd today call a drag queen, a serious faux pas for a well-respected American institution like Ford in the 1950s. In addition, when it was finally launched, the car was just too expensive for most Americans and sales were unimpressive at best. In 1960, Edsels were produced in fewer numbers, and with no light at the end of the tunnel, then Ford president and future Secretary of Defense, by the way, Robert McNamara, finally pulled the plug. According to some statistics, each Edsel was sold at a loss of more than $3,300 US, $30,000 US today, or the approximate cost of a brand new one. Yet despite numerous missteps and blunders, many executives refused to believe or at least acknowledge that they'd done anything wrong. Some even blamed the public, saying they were too fickle and weren't smart enough to realize a good thing when they saw one. No, guys, that's not the correct answer. We made a product, you didn't like it, it's your fault. No. In all, about 115,000 Edsels were sold, or about half of what the company projected they'd need to sell to break even. These days, Edsels in all their glorious forms are available all over the internet, and most of them are priced between $15,000 and $50,000, depending on the model and the condition. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, you know what to do. Use that like button below. Also, do subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching.